regarding both the United States government and foreign guest workers. Specifically, the indictment alleges that defendants lied to the United States in visa applications and more currently that they lied to foreign guest workers regarding the types of jobs they would have when they arrived in the District of South Carolina, the amount they would get paid, the number of hours they could work, and the living conditions. And ladies and gentlemen, it's a serious indictment. We'd like to thank our partners at the Department of State, the Myrtle Police Department, and Department of Justice in Washington. In our investigation has reason to believe that there are far more victims that remain in this indictment that was just unsealed about an hour ago. If either you or any one of your colleagues knows of someone that may have been a victim of this visa fraud scheme, we would ask you to report it at traffickingtips@statedepartment.gov. Lastly, ladies and gentlemen, the defendants, some of them have been arrested and they're being arraigned right now in the Florence courthouse. And, after the arraignment today, the indictment will be unsealed. We're happy to provide copies to you after the press conference. With that said, I'll turn it over to my colleagues in the Department of State, Chief Rock, and Myrtle Police Department.
Good afternoon. My name is Ed Roth. I'm the resident agent in charge for the Diplomatic Security Service here in South Carolina. My agency is the law enforcement component of the U.S. Department of State, and I am responsible, and my colleagues are responsible for the investigation of international travel document fraud with a specific emphasis on U.S. passports and visas here in South Carolina. In this investigation, we became aware of allegations that foreign nationals in their pursuit of legal employment in the United States became victimized as part of a money-making scheme. And working closely with our partners in the U.S. Attorney's Office as well as the Myrtle Beach Police Department, we conducted an investigation to identify as many of those victims as possible and determine exactly what criminal violations have occurred. And the arrest operations that we conducted yesterday are a result of that investigation. We're very pleased with the results, and we look forward to hearing from any other members of the community who feel they have been victimized by the subjects of this investigation. We welcome them to come forward. My agency has provided this email address, and we eagerly encourage anyone who believes they may have been victimized to contact us so we can evaluate their specific circumstance, determine how best to move forward based on their story. Thank you.
Good afternoon. The Myrtle Beach Police Department, along with our community, remain committed to holding persons who victimize anyone here in the Myrtle Beach area accountable for their crimes. I cannot emphasize that enough. This case and those who are arrested demonstrate our commitment and the partnerships we have with our federal law enforcement colleagues. We are here to help and will always stand up for those who need us. Thank you for being here to get that message to our communities and to those who need us. Thank you.
If you have any questions, we can direct them to the three speakers.
Was this investigation started by Myrtle Beach Police, or was it started by the State Department?
So my agency received allegations of visa fraud and a financial scheme to use electronic transmissions to manipulate the proceeds of that scheme. So my agency was the first one to initiate the investigation.
When you're talking about people applying for visas, are these J-1 visas?
In this specific case, we do not have indication of J-1 visa fraud, but there are other visa categories that have been affected.
Can you tell us which ones?
Well, specifically, we're looking at H-2B visas.
How long has this investigation been ongoing?
Multiple years. The investigation does continue, which is why we're seeking the public's assistance and identify additional people that may be victimized. We certainly tried our best to identify those we believe have been victimized, but we know that there are others out there who, for whatever reason, fear reprisals or are hesitant to come forward, and that's why it's important in this press conference and for you folks to get the word out so other folks have the opportunity to hear our message and to hear that we know about this scheme, and we want to hear their stories as well.
When did y'all first get the first tip that this stuff was happening?
It's been a few years. Unfortunately, cases like this take a long time to review records. We'd like to think we can act quickly, but it's also important to make sure we take the time to evaluate as many records and information as possible so we get the prosecution right. When you're talking about financial investigations, we have to make sure that we don't act too precipitously and lose some of those illegal financial gains.
Do you have a specific year when you first received the first tip of the first allegation?
At this point, I don't want to get into the details of the ordinance investigation, but certainly that will come out.
Can you all share how many victims you've identified at this time?
We believe we have several dozen victims identified already, which reflects the substantive nature of the importance of this investigation. Knowing the role of the businesses that have been indicted in the community and the services they provided in the community, we think there are many more dozens at least, perhaps hundreds. But as many people that hear our message and are willing to come forward, we do want to hear from them. There may be degrees of their victimization or potential victimization, but we hope they won't be hesitant to come forward, that however they choose to let us know of their story, whether it's through our email address or through some other mechanism, perhaps contacting the local police, please do so. Please let us know so we can evaluate how we can help you if you have been victimized.
How many arrests have you made?
So yesterday we made 3 arrests.
Are there any potential future arrests that you're looking to make in this?
It's an ongoing investigation, so yes, it's quite possible there will be additional arrests.
Can you give us an example of some of the things that these workers were promised that they didn't get?
So when you talk about the visa process and the bringing of foreign labor into the United States, it essentially involves a contract between an American-based business and a foreign national looking for employment in the United States. So the United States government has certain expectations, regulations, and laws that require the American business to provide guarantees to these foreign nationals. Additionally, there are restrictions on what sort of fees could be charged to these foreign nationals. Sorry. So in cases of this nature, we evaluate the contractual agreement entered between the American business and the foreign national, evaluate the fees that were charged to the foreign national worker to make sure they're consistent with U.S. law. And where they are not, we investigate further to determine if there's in fact a criminal violation.
So basically, some of the businesses were overcharging.
Well, that's an element of the fraud we've discovered, is that unlawful financial gain was made by the American businesses identified in our indictments at the loss of the foreign nationals. And it's unacceptable in U.S. law, and it's not acceptable to my agency or the U.S. Attorney's Office or the Myrtle Beach Police Department. So that's why we work closely together to pursue justice for the victims, and where there's violations of federal law, to pursue those to the best ability of the U.S. Attorney's Office.
So when you say some of these victims, received less money than they were promised, is there any indication that you might be able to share as far as like how shortchanged these victims ended up getting?
At this point, because it's still an ongoing investigation, we don't want to share the full extent of the information we have. We want to make sure that the prosecution team in the Attorney's Office has the full benefit of the evidence we've collected, and we don't want to get out in front of that at this point.
For those victims who are out there who you've identified as you move forward in the process to get justice for those victims, what's your message to them?
Understand that we want to be your partner in identifying your story and learning how you got here, how this company processed you to come to the United States, and let us help you evaluate what you went through and where there is wrongdoing, where we can provide assistance, the U.S. government can provide assistance, then we will seek to do that.
So you said several dozen victims have been identified right now. As far as the company here, Grandeur Management, is there any idea of how many foreign nationals they employed, regardless of whether they've come out as victims?
Well, those details are still part of the ongoing investigation, and I would defer to the U.S. Attorney's Office to answer questions.
Is there any specific country of origin where most people
Not that we're prepared to identify at this time. It appears that the companies that have been the target of our investigation did not base their schemes on certain ethnicities or national origin. They seem to be focused on ill-gotten financial gains.
What kind of jobs were these victims doing?
So the businesses we've identified in the indictment in our investigation focus on the hospitality industry. At this time, I would not want to get into those details.
Could you come to the podium? Sorry.
Two countries that many of the victims came from were Jamaica and the Philippines. That's not an exhaustive list, but those are two of the major countries, Jamaica and Philippines.
Could you give us a specific job description for the visa workers? Like for example, hospitality industry. That are we talking about cooks, servers?
So there really is no limiting factor in that regard. It really comes down to the opportunities these companies we've identified had to provide foreign workers to local businesses. It essentially is the gambit of jobs within the service industry in the Myrtle Beach area. Myrtle Beach obviously provides a great deal of service to residents and tourists, so there is certainly a great demand on labor, and our victims appear to come from across the service industry positions.
And the information that I've given you on the press release spells a lot of it. As U.S. Attorney DeHart said, the arraignment's happening here in the next few minutes, so monitor Pacer. A lot of that will be on here. So we have time for one more, and then we got to put that in. So if anyone else has an additional question. Thank you all very much. Really appreciate your help. Sharing that email address. Really helpful.
Could you leave that up for just a second? Sorry.
Yeah,
Thanks.